Dear students, after studying this module, you shall be able to know about most important biogeochemical cycles like sulfur, oxygen and phosphorus, understand different steps involved in biogeochemical cycles, know about the reactions which are involved in sulfur, oxygen and phosphorus cycles, know about effects of biogeochemical cycles on the environment, also know about different components of biogeochemical cycles, and lastly know also about the different functions of phosphorus cycle. Let us begin with the introduction of this topic. You are already aware that a cycle is a series of changes which comes back to the starting point and which can be repeated. Biogeochemical is a combination of biological, geological and chemical and are part of a larger cycle. A biogeochemical cycle is very important in nature. Cycling of water, carbon, oxygen, sulfur, phosphorus and nitrogen etc. cycled by biogeochemical cycles are known. It is also called a nutrient cycle. Biogeochemical cycle is very important for environment and it is a spontaneous chemical cycle. In this cyclic process, chemical elements and molecules are moved through segments of the environment, that is the atmosphere, lithosphere, biosphere and hydrosphere. Matter converts one form to other from biogeochemical cycles only. There are some important biogeochemical cycles like nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, oxygen, water, sulfur, etc. We will study each of these cycles in this module. Let us now begin, students, with the sulfur cycle. Sulfur cycle is important for geochemical cycle and life. Many minerals are affected by this cycle. Sulfur is an essential element and is an important nutrient for organisms. Oxidation reaction takes place in the sulfur cycle. There are some broad steps or processes which are involved in the sulfur cycle, and they are: first is the mineralization process. Organic sulfur converts into inorganic sulfur, for example say hydrogen sulfide, by mineralization process. Second process is the oxidation process. In this process, students, hydrogen sulfide oxidizes into sulfate, that is SO4 2-. Third is the reduction process. In this process, sulfate reduces to sulfide. Incorporation of halide is the fourth process, and in this process, sulfide converts into organic sulfur. Plants take their nutrients from mineral compounds of the environment. In this process, sulfate of sulfur is taken by the roots. Animals get sulfur by eating plants or other animals. Sulfur is essential component of some of the amino acids also. Sulfur is a huge component of the living organisms. In atmosphere, sulfur is present in the form of sulfur dioxide, that is SO2. Now we shall study about the reactions which are involved in the sulfur cycle. First is the formation of sulfuric acid, and it involves the reaction of hydrogen sulfide and ozone to give rise to water and sulfur dioxide. This sulfur dioxide reacts with elemental oxygen and the oxygen molecule to give you sulfur trioxide and the oxygen molecule henceforth. Finally, this sulfur trioxide reacts with water to give you sulfuric acid. This sulfuric acid falls down as the acid rain. Now we shall study about the effects of the sulfur cycle on the environment. Sulfur cycle is a natural process which affects the environment in various ways. There are many types of reactions that occur in the environment which change the form of sulfur. In each segment of the environment, sulfur is present in different forms like sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, sulfates, etc. Also, there are some formations that affect the environment in the huge amount or in a major way. First would be acid rain. Acid rain is a polluted rain in which sulfur falls on the earth in the form of sulfuric acid, as I just discussed. Sulfur dioxide comes from factory, industrial areas, etc. Now, sulfur dioxide reacts with the moisture present in the air and forms sulfuric acid. Acid comes from atmosphere along with the rain, and it harms the crops, soils and all living organisms as well as the monuments that are present on the earth. Acid rain severely affects the plants and the composition of the soil. The affected wild plants and crops are characterized with injury and become prone to multiple infections, and they ultimately die out. Second is the water. Sulfuric acid increases the acidity of water and also increases the amount of aluminium in water, by which the pH of water decreases on a continuous basis. Fish and aquatic animals are damaged by high concentration of aluminium and pH imbalance. Due to acid rain, the acidity in 70% of lakes and 30% of streams has increased. Soils. Soils are damaged by acid rain also. Acidity of rain increases toxicity of soil and decreases the amount of nutrient present in the soil. High altitude forests, which are surrounded by fog and clouds majorly, receive more acidic rain. Due to loss of nutrients in the soil, crops damage also occurs in the large amounts. Thus, sulfur damages all, that is soil, plants, water, different segments of environment, etc. Having finished with the effects of sulfur cycle, the reactions involved in the sulfur cycle and the bad effects of sulfur on various segments of environment, let us now proceed to the topic of oxygen cycle. The oxygen cycle is a biogeochemical cycle which is very important for the environment. Oxygen cycle is a natural process in which oxygen moves into different spheres of the environment. In the atmosphere, oxygen and its products play an important role. Oxygen is present in different spheres of the atmosphere or the environment like lithosphere, atmosphere, biosphere and hydrosphere. In this process, oxygen moves through animals, plants and the atmosphere itself. Plants release oxygen by photosynthesis reaction in the presence of sunlight, but at night plants release carbon dioxide. Steps and reactions which are involved in the oxygen cycle. There are some important steps and reactions. First one is the photosynthesis. Plants make their food in the presence of sunlight with the help of a pigment known as chlorophyll. In this process, plants release oxygen in the atmosphere and take carbon dioxide from animals. The reaction is like this. 6 molecules of CO2 with the 6 molecules of water, they combine to produce C6H12O6, that is the basic formula of a sugar, and 6 molecules of oxygen. Second process is the respiration. In this step, animals take up oxygen and in turn they release carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This process continuously moves in the repeating manner. Now, the reaction for this is CH2O in the presence of oxygen gives rise to CO2 and water and energy. That means oxygen helps in the burning of various carbon molecules in the body with the release of energy. Formation of ozone is the third process. Oxygen and its products are present in the atmosphere. Ozone is an important product of oxygen. In stratosphere, ozone layer plays a preventive role. Dangerous UV rays, that is the ultraviolet rays, are prevented to reach the earth by the ozone layer because ultraviolet rays are very harmful for animals, plants and whole part of earth. Ozone is a secondary pollutant if it is produced in the troposphere, then stratosphere. Let us now study the effects of oxygen on health. First is, it accelerates or supports the combustion process, which is a major hurdle in firefighting, but choking the fire of oxygen supply extinguishes the fire. Second is, it reacts with almost all the metals to form oxides and brings about corrosion process, generally known as rusting in the context of iron metal. Third is that humans breathe oxygen, but if we try to inhale pure oxygen, it could prove harmful to our internal organs. This is because of the oxidizing nature of oxygen. Fourth is that the animals and plants survive due to presence of oxygen onto different segments of the environment. Having studied the oxygen cycle and its various effects, let us now move to the phosphorus cycle. The phosphorus cycle is another type of biogeochemical cycle in which phosphorus moves through part of the environment. Reiterating the fact, phosphorus is found in water, soil, rocks, etc. It is also referred as a mineral cycle and it is very important for normal growth and development of various living organisms. Phosphorus is a component of our body, teeth, bones and DNA. Phosphorus does not exist in gaseous state. Phosphorus is absorbed by the soil, water and plants very easily and it is produced from the rocks. Animals absorb phosphates by eating plants or plant eating animals. When animals and plants die, phosphates return to the soils or oceans due to the decomposition process. After that, phosphorus will end up in sediments or rock formations once again, remaining there for millions of years. Eventually, phosphorus is released again through weathering and the cycle starts over again. Phosphorus is an essential element. It is an important part of the ATP molecule. It is also found in DNA and RNA. Phosphorus is important for every living organism for growth. Steps and reactions involved in the phosphorus cycle and their study. Now let us begin with this topic. Phosphorus moves in different areas of the environment in phosphorus cycle. Animals get phosphorus from plants. Aquatic plants obtain phosphorus directly from water and animals get it from drinking water. Phosphorus is absorbed by earth in different ways. Animals release phosphorus through waste. Phosphorus containing waste breaks down and due to decomposition and mineralization, the phosphorus goes back to the water or soil systems again. There are 3 phosphorus atoms present in the ATP molecule as shown here in the structure you can see. Now let us begin with the human impact on phosphorus cycle and its study. Phosphorus cycle is largely affected by human activities. For example, the excessive use of fertilizer and detergents contributes very highly to the amount of phosphorus and this is due to high anthropogenic activities. Functions of phosphorus. There are various different types of functions of phosphorus. First is the biological function. Formation of ATP takes place every day in the human body. Phosphates are components of nucleotides. These nucleotides play an important role in the biological function too. Energy is saved inside the body due to phosphorus, which is present in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, in the cells. Structure of DNA is possible as helix because helix of the DNA, that is a double helix of DNA, is joined to each other through phosphate bridges. Phospholipids are found in biological cell membranes, which are significant to maintain the acid-base homeostasis in the body. Second is the ecological function. Phosphorus is an important macro element required for normal growth and development of animals, plants and other living organisms. Therefore, phosphorus forms life-sustaining molecules. For aquatic ecosystems, phosphorus is limiting nutrient and affects the biological productivity also. Mainly, phosphorus is not found in atmosphere in the gaseous form. Rather, it is commonly found in soils, rocks and water. Fertilizer is made by phosphorus in the huge amounts. In nature, phosphorus most commonly exists in the form of phosphates. Let us now come to the topic of biodistribution of various elements. The distribution of metal elements in the biological system has functional significance. There are many factors like pH, redox potential, in particular local environment, ambient aqueous conditions, etc., on which availability of metal elements have changed with time in the biosystem. The condition of primitive earth was reducing than that demanded by living organisms. The concentration of oxygen has continuously increased in the environment with time and with the passage of different times. Metal ions present in the biosphere have their functional values. In 1826, Wohler recognized that organisms have organic chemicals like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen and oxygen. Essential requirement for nitrogen, sulfur, potassium, calcium, magnesium and iron were first suggested in 1860. However, occurrence of heme in the living system was recognized using spectroscopic method in the year 1895. In fact, Warburg in 1935 wrote a book entitled Metal Prosthetic Groups, especially heme enzyme. In 1948, Irwin Williams series of transition metal stability constant was generated. However, theories of general understanding of complex ion stabilities including potassium, sodium, magnesium and calcium was studied during the 1950s and 1960s. Now students, we have learnt about the oxygen, sulfur and phosphorus cycle and also the biodistribution of elements. I would now like to summarize this module for you. In this module, we studied that biogeochemical cycles are essential for functioning of the earth system. During these cycles, elements like oxygen, sulfur, phosphorus move through different spheres like lithosphere, biosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, etc. of the environment. These cycles play a significant role to create a balance in the environment, but at the same time are cause of environmental pollution, especially sulfur, as we have discussed. We also told you that oxygen cycle helps to survive animals and plants. We studied that ozone layer in stratosphere protects living organism on earth by harmful UV rays present from the sun.